Okay, this is Matt. I'm going to take advantage of some quiet time and actually do a couple of videos here. I want to hit today a good portion of Romans 1, and I'm going to talk about the difference, what happens, I call it the fruit of unthankfulness. It's what happens when we turn our backs on God. What we find in Romans 1, we find the root of homosexuality in Romans 1 and all kinds of other sins. Now I'll get into that. This might be two videos, but I'm going to start at Romans 1:16. I love this verse. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Why would we be? Are you kidding me? For it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. For it, the gospel of Jesus Christ, it is the very power to save for everyone who believes. Anyone who believes. Anyone who bows his head and bends his knee to King Jesus can be saved. Anyone. Muslim, Hindu, man, woman, black, white. I love that. It's for anybody. For in it, in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith. For in the gospel, the righteousness of God. How is the righteousness of God revealed? Because He saves us. What a righteous God. And He's also righteous in that sinners cannot come to heaven. They must be transformed, must be born again. For it is written, the just shall live by faith. He gives us a chance to have faith in Him and be born again. That's a beautiful thing. Verse 18, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who suppress the truth in righteousness. Okay, there's a lot going on here. For the wrath of God, what are we saved from when we're saved? We're not saved from anything else other than God's wrath. That's what we're saved from, because if we don't get saved, we have to face God's wrath, and His wrath condemns us to hell. He has to. He's a just God. He's a good God. If somebody raped and murdered your whole family, and that person went in front of the judge, and you were there in the courtroom looking for justice, and the judge said, you know what? Are you sorry? And the rapist and murderer said, yeah, sorry. Lost my head. Won't do it again. The judge would say, okay, go ahead. You're free. That would not be a righteous judge, would it? You'd freak out. You'd want justice. God isn't like that. God is just. He has to punish the sinners because He is just, because He is a good judge. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men. What's the difference between ungodliness and unrighteousness? Well, ungodliness is man sinning against God. Everything starts with ungodliness. It all starts there. What's the fruit of ungodliness? Unrighteousness, right? As soon as we turn our back on God, we sin against God, it's only a matter of time till we're sinning against fellow man, right? So, I mean, we can see that in this country right now, big time. This country is living in Romans 1. Don't fool yourself. What happened when they took the Bibles out of school? That's ungodliness. They turned their back on God. Now what's happening? There's sin rampant in the schools. They're teaching our children about homosexuality in public schools. It's insane. That's what ungodliness and unrighteousness is. Ungodliness is against God. Unrighteousness is against men, who suppress the truth. Ungodly and unrighteous people always suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. See this? Everybody gets a chance to understand God. For since the creation of the world, His invisible attributes are clearly seen. You can go outside and look at the trees, and you can see that there had to be a Creator. The invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even His eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. There is no excuse. There is no excuse. They are without excuse. This next verse explains it. Because although they knew God, see that past tense? Although they knew God, everybody knew God. See, He writes the law in our heart, Romans 2:15. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, eternity is written in our heart. If you go back to Jeremiah 31, I will put my laws and my precepts in your hearts and in your minds. So we are born with His law in our heart, and we choose whether we're going to come to Him or not. Well, that can be debated, but anyways, what can't be debated is that He gives us His law, and His eternity is put in our hearts. Because although they knew God, they did not glorify Him, nor were they thankful. See, what's the crime here? Well, the crime is turning your back on God. That's the sin. And then we start to see unrighteousness come out of that ungodliness. And pretty soon, it gets worse, because even though they know God, they turn their back on Him, and they don't glorify Him, nor are they thankful. They don't give God glory or thank Him in verse 21. Because although they knew God, they did not glorify Him, nor were they thankful. So then what happens? What happens when people don't glorify God and don't thank God? The next verse, but became futile in their thinking, became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. It gets worse. It keeps getting worse. It keeps getting worse. Verse 22, professing to become wise, professing to be wise, they became fools. We see that all over the place. We have people writing books, getting degrees, and they're spiritually, they're dumb as a box of rocks. They're dark, they're dark, they're dark, they're wicked. But become futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing to become wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man, and birds, and four-footed animals, and creeping things. See, they start worshiping things instead of God, don't they? Therefore God also gave them up, further condemnation, therefore God also gave them up to uncleanness in their lusts of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves, who exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Do we see this today? Oh man, you better believe green this and green that, and the liberal God is global warming. The liberal God is the earth. We got to save the earth. No, we don't have to save the earth. God holds all things together. Colossians 1:17. God's going to come back and burn up the earth. He's going to roll it up like a garment and chuck it. No, we don't have to worship the earth. We worship God. See, we see people worshiping the earth now. We see people worshiping animals now. I mean, save the seals and kill the baby, right? Can you imagine the madness? You can go to jail for tampering with an eagle egg, but you can crush the skull of a baby. When that baby's coming out of the womb, you can do a partial birth abortion and call it reproductive freedom. Wow. Their foolish hearts were darkened. Seeking to be wise, they were fools. For this reason, God gave them up to vile passions, for even their women exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. Likewise, also the men, leaving the natural use of women, burned in lust for one another. It's disgusting. Men with men committing what is shameful, and receiving in themselves the due penalty of their error which was due. Even as they did not retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind. It gets worse and worse and worse, to do things which are not fitting, being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. They are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things. Disobedient to parents, undiscerning, goes on and on, who knowing the righteousness judgment of God, that those who do all these things are deserving of death. Here's where the ultimate end. Not only do they do these things, not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. Not only do they do these things which are deserving of death, but they approve of those who practice them. See, that's why 2% of the population wants to change marriage into saying it's okay for homosexuals to marry. This is what happens when you turn your back on God. It starts with ungodliness, goes to unrighteousness, then you don't give God glory, then you don't thank Him, and your mind gets turned over to more and more wicked things. This is where homosexuality comes from, and it's very clear in Romans 1. And I'm going to keep it under 10 minutes. That's all I got for today. I could go on, but I won't. Peace.